Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. India and Israel have one enemy in common, the evil axis of terror. Both nations have been stung by extremists and have seen their sons and daughters being butchered for their religion. But both nations have stood up and exercised their right to fight terror. Just like Israel avenged the 7th October 2023 attacks, Bharat has taken Badla for the Pahalgam carnage with Operation Sindoor today. Israel, India's ally, has been steadfast in its support to India's right to crush terror. Joining us today is Israeli Ambassador to India, Reuven Azar. Thank you very much for joining me on Times Now. I want to ask you, you've tweeted this morning, Israel supports India's right for self-defense. Terrorists should know there is no place to hide from their heinous crimes against innocent. What's your assessment of India's response to Pakistan through Operation Sindoor?
Navika, it's only natural that following this terrible carnage that happened in Pahalgam, that India will exercise its rights for self-defense. And it's natural that Israel will stand with India, because we feel all too well what is the bitter taste of this kind of crimes that are committed against us. And therefore, I tweeted this from the bottom of my heart. I think that all Israeli people feel the same, and we feel that we have to stand against terror, because if we don't do that, this will only continue.
It has been continuing, and India has been facing this for several decades now, and even Pakistan has given away its worst kept secret with interviews that have come in the last week or 10 days from Pakistani ministers on various British channels where they've said that they've done it for the West, the terror factories that they run. I want to ask you, the precision strikes, would you see this as an attack on Pakistan, or would you see this as India exercising its right for self-defense after what happened, the manner in which religious profiling was done and the manner in which the Pahalgam massacre took place?
Look, this conflict between India and Pakistan is not our conflict. We support the decisions of the Indian government that is acting in behalf of the Indian people to do what they see fit in order to defend themselves. We don't have the tools to judge it, nor the will to advise the Indian government in any way.
The attacks today actually happened despite the UN Security Council's General Secretary asking for deference and actually maintaining restraint. Do you think the world community at large understands the kind of war on terror that India has had to fight in this region?
Unfortunately not. I think that the world hasn't realized the nature of the terrorist threat. And we, as democracies that stand in the forefront of this fight, we understand it. Terror cannot be contextualized. When people are massacred in such a way, the calls for restraint are completely unnecessary, because we as democracies, we always restrain ourselves. We always try to refrain from going to war. And therefore, the efforts and the focus of the Secretary General and the international community has to be focused on condemning terrorism, but not only condemning, acting, taking action to stop the spread of radical content on electronic media, on social media, to punish those who harbor terrorists, to sanction them, to act in concert in order to tackle that, because terrorism is hitting us today, it will hit them tomorrow.
But do you think any of these powers actually understand that this is playing with fire? Because we've seen Pakistan, you've seen in your region the conflicts that have happened, but there are power equations in the world that at the end of the day determine whether or not countries take a position against terror. Pakistan and terror, after Osama bin Laden, there's nothing left to anybody's imagination. Despite that, do you think powers like China, like United States, have recognized terror in Pakistan's backyard as a huge problem?
Well, I'm not sure. What I can tell you is the following. many countries are contextualizing terrorism, are saying, well, this is happening because of a certain reason, a certain grievance. That is completely mistaken. Terrorism is terrorism, and hurting innocent civilians has to be out of the equation, regardless of the nature of the conflict. You know, they've been telling us, oh, you know, your neighbors are suffering, that's the reason. Well, you know, we have withdrawn from the Gaza Strip. We have given many peace proposals to our neighbors. But when you have a force like Hamas that is completely determined to destroy us, to take us out of existence, then there's nothing much that you can do rather than to stand up to them. And therefore, people have to stop contextualizing. Terrorism is terrorism. It has to be taken out of the equation, it has to be condemned, and it has to be acted upon.
So I want to ask you, has there been any conversation between you, your counterpart? Have there been any briefings? Have there been any exchange of information with Indian entities and the Indian Ministry of External Affairs on this exchange with Pakistan today and where it is expected to go? We
are following the events, and we are briefed from time to time. But, you know, this is not that important. What is important at this point is that India is taking care of itself, and we trust the decisions of the Indian government because it's their responsibility to defend their people, and we are not intervening in that.
I once again ask you, do you share India's assessment that the international community has been too lenient towards Pakistan as a terror sponsor?
I think that all those who harbor terrorism have to be exposed and have to be isolated. Otherwise, you will see situations like we saw in our part of the world, in which Iran has created a ring of fire against Israel. And we were attacked from 7 fronts in this last war. And this emanates from the fact that there are countries that they adopt terrorism as a way of balancing their deficit. You know, India and Israel are pretty successful countries. And as much as we succeed, those who are failing are going to try to balance their deficit by creating these atrocities. And this is completely unacceptable.
Well said. Do you see the direct charge at Pakistan today as a limited conflict that has been undertaken to neutralize the massacre in Pahalgam? Do you see this escalating? What is your assessment of the situation in this region?
Well, it's very difficult to say. I confess I'm not an expert on Pakistan or this region. I'm following the events. We are trying to do whatever we can in order to stand by our friends. And we hope that peace will be restored and terrorists will be deterred.
Both of them can't happen together. The peace is restored only after terrorists have been eliminated from the equation, as you said. It is the elimination that has to come before peace can be established. Do you believe India is on the right path in satisfying the first goal before it can get to the next?
Well, I'm sure that India is on the right path because since I arrived here, I've seen India flourishing, India led by responsible leaders, India in a path to prosperity, and there are those who are trying to derail that. But I trust the leaders to do whatever they need to do in order to sort out the situation.
So let me ask you, in your own experience in your country, when you're fighting against Hamas, do you believe that this is a war that has an end? Do you believe that this is a war where you will be able to eliminate terrorism as you know it? Or do you think this is something that is so long-term that even the process becomes the punishment for the people in both Israel and the Gaza Strip?
Well, I believe that terrorism is a growing threat, and we are going to face terrorism in the future because more and more elements are inspiring each other to commit these atrocities, and unless we unite in the world to tackle it more effectively, we're going to continue suffering from it. Having said that, in the Gaza Strip now we are entering into a new phase. Israel, since the 7th of October, has used a combined method of military pressure and negotiations in order to bring back our hostages and destroy Hamas. we've been able to bring back 194 hostages. And as time goes by and Hamas gets destroyed, they understand that they don't have a way out, and therefore it has been more difficult to get hostages back from them as we speak. And therefore, 2 days ago, the Israeli cabinet adopted a resolution to enter into a new phase in the war with Hamas, hopefully the final stage, in which, first of all, we are going to create a humanitarian area controlled by Israel, in which international assistance is going to flow into, in which the Palestinian population is going to be evacuated into, so they get disconnected from the grip of Hamas that has been taking over the international assistance and selling it to them. Then, in the second stage, we're going to take more chunks of the Gaza Strip until Hamas decides to give up their weapons and give us their hostages. If they refuse, we'll have to continue until Hamas is defeated. That is a government decision. We really have the resolve to fulfill the goals that were set out at the beginning, following the 7th of October, to bring back our hostages and to make sure that Hamas...
When are you launching the next phase?
Well, there is not an exact timing. There have been publications that following the visit of President Trump to the region, Israel is going to start operations. We are giving, actually, a time frame for Hamas to avoid the situation and to finish this war today. The war can finish today if Hamas brings the hostages and surrenders its weapon. It's not happening, but eventually it will happen.
Do you think that will be a prolonged phase as well, the final strike as you call it?
Well, I think it's not going to take a year and 8 months like it's been taking so far. It was a painstaking process because, as I told you, we had this dilemma that we had to overcome. We wanted the hostages back, we didn't want them to die, and therefore we were very cautious in the way we were exercising our military pressure. We were combining it with negotiations. But at the end of the day, this process is coming to a culmination. Therefore, the next stage maybe won't be short, but will be for sure much shorter than one we have been seeing so far.
I also want to ask you, how do you see the role of the United States? Mr. President Donald Trump said the United States anticipated some action between India and Pakistan, but expressed the hope that it ends very quickly. He also called terrorism a shame. How do you assess United States and its position towards terror?
Well, first of all, the United States has taken very decisive action against the Houthis in Yemen. And you've seen yesterday that finally, after a campaign that took almost 2 months, the Houthis have committed to stop attacking ships in the Bab el-Mandab area. So, thanks to the American pressure, the Houthis are backing down, at least to part of their terror. That's number one. Number two, we are seeing backing of the United States to what Israel has to do in order to fight terrorism. And when it comes to this area, I think that everybody is interested in a situation in which peace will be restored. But I think that there is support. There is condemnation of the terrorist attack. There is support for the right of India to self-defense. And we'll have to see whether this is going. We are following it as much as everybody else are.
Well, clearly for India, this once again is a battle for survival because civilians being attacked is a no-go zone as far as any country is concerned. These governments responsible for the security of civilians, the current conflict with Pakistan will depend on how Pakistan now responds. If it stays where it is, we probably would have tackled this, but what would you put your money on? An extension of the conflagration, or do you think this is where it ends?
Well, you know, there's a Jewish say that in the modern era, prophecy is given only to fools. So I don't know what will happen. We'll hope for the best.
Well, absolutely hoping for the best, but India making its intentions clear. Decisive action will be taken against terror, and Operation Sindoor shows not only that we have the will, we also have the ability and we have the emotional strength to avenge the pain of our own civilians, of our own citizens. Thank you very much, Reuven Azar, for joining me on Times Now on a day that has been, in a manner, emotionally draining and extremely militarily decisive for India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Navika.